And we are live. What's going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live? It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Tuesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. And since it's Tuesday, it's time for another session of the Men's Circle. Man, tonight we got a pretty heavy topic. It's so heavy that everybody was scared to come, except for my brother Tim. No, we got a heavy topic, though, tonight that we're going to be talking about on the Men's Circle. And man, the conversations I've even had in the 2 days or the 1 day that I've been back home, this is a timely topic. So tonight's topic we're going to be talking about on the Men's Circle is rejection. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topics, but before we even share what we mean by the topic, brother Tim, you're a long time listener. What do they say? First time caller, long time listener.
It's both now. It's like long time caller, long time listener. Long-time supporter, grassroots effort enthusiast, whatever you want to throw in there.
Right. Go ahead. Well, shoot, I feel like you don't even need to introduce yourself, but for those who don't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself and then share what this topic rejection means.
I'll do just that. Tim Rushing, brother from another mother from Coach Rowe, 37 years-ish going on or whatever. We've been in each other's lives. We go back a long ways. Now, the rejection. What rejection means to me. Rejection is a very current term when you think about it with me. Rejection's about in the moment. And I've gotten to the stage of my life where not all rejection is bad rejection. Because there's times where I'm like, man, what if that would have happened? Holy crap. That wouldn't have turned out good for me. So sometimes rejection turns out to be a good thing. So it's important that you don't dwell on it in the moment when it happens, because you don't know what the other side of the equation is. But that's you got to get conditioned to that. At first, there's a lot of pain, anguish. It's funny when I seen the topic, first thing I thought about was that Will Smith scene from The Fresh Prince. You know, why doesn't he want me? You know what I mean? And it's like, there's all types of rejection. There's rejection you can't control. There's rejection that you didn't measure up to. You weren't prepared for. There's self-inflicted rejection, and there's rejection that really, it's not even really rejection when you think about it. You never really had a chance to get accepted. So to get rejected is just the finishing of that unknown. But so yeah, to me, what rejection is a learning experience, man. It teaches you perspective if you use it right. Because what we got to get better at as society is not be so in the moment with rejection, but being able to revisit rejection and see how the outcome turned out. We don't do that. We don't do a good job about that. We just, I didn't get promotion, or I reached out to this woman and it didn't, she turned me down. And then you go back and you look and you're like, Facebook, you might know this person and she's like on crack. You know what I mean? Whole life's in shambles. You're like, damn, I dodged that bullet. But you don't remember that. You don't go back and be like, man, something really, really guided me out of that. Good thing she rejected me. You take rejection personally. And to me, rejection is funny because when you get comfortable enough in your own skin, you realize very few people know you well enough to reject who you really are anyway. They're rejecting the notion of who they think you are. And so that's always going to be misguided. But to me, rejection is a powerful tool. Like you said, a lot of people don't like talking about this stuff. Once you get really comfortable with it, you don't give a shit. You're like, hey, I got rejected for this, but hey, it worked out the way it's supposed to, you know?
Yeah,
and you take it for a lesson learned.
Sometimes you miss the shot.
Right.
Just is what it
but
is.
You thought you were gonna go through life hitting all your shots? Steph Curry don't hit all his shots. Like, what you think this is? And everybody gets humbled. Look at like you look at all these people that love these celebrities, right? And they're like, oh, look at that, relationship goals, and then they break up 2 minutes later. You know what I mean? It's like, you think even these celebrities that got all this money, and some of them are really good looking, they get rejected. They get cheated on. Like, What you think this is? You thought you were gonna go through life unscathed, man? Nah,
Right.
not in the men's circle, not in
Not,
life.
not in real life, you weren't.
Yeah, this topic. When I think of the men's circle, and this topic in the intro, it makes me think of like
One of
understand
the
this. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I'll turn it back to you, man. What does it mean to you?
No, it's interesting. I approach this thought process during the time I'm talking. I'm going to mute you, so you have to unmute yourself because you got all those kids playing soccer in your background. Um, but when I started thinking about this topic, there were so many different angles in which I approached it. But I love the fact that you said, rejection is not really this thing that's personal. We think it's personal, but that's oftentimes you're rejected by people who don't even know you, right? Like they don't know you intimately, I should say. They don't know you intimately. They just know of you or know what they think they know of you. Um, and I also like the fact that you're saying, once you start to kind of like embrace that fact, you really you didn't say this word, but your confidence kind of increases because once you know what you bring to the table, you're no longer on, hey, well, they rejected me and you're taking it personally as they're rejecting you. You're like, man, they're missing out, right? Like, you're totally missing out. And I think about this because I've had a few jobs in my life, and I've had a few job interviews in my life, and probably in all the job interviews that I've had, I've only had two that I can recall, two situations where I wasn't offered the job in my entire life. Two situations, and the first time I was really young. I was young. I was young. I was like in my early 20s, maybe. And I remember thinking I had the job and not getting it. And I was like, whoa, like, yo, why didn't I get this job? What's going on? Right. But in the second one, when they didn't offer the job, it was just like, oh, okay. It didn't have the impact because for me, it was like, this is probably happening for a reason. And the second one where I didn't get the job had to do with fires in California, right? And so I look at if I was in that profession with the number of wildfires that California has had since I would have been in that profession, my life would have been significantly impacted because I'd be working overtime so much that I wouldn't be present with my kids. I wouldn't be present in my home. I'd just be exhausted all the time and maybe not even achieve some of the goals that I've achieved in life because I wasn't in that role. So when you talk about being reflective about rejection, that's really what came to the top of all the different angles in which I approach rejection. It was being reflective about rejection and what it really means. I think sometimes we're so caught up in that current moment that you're talking about in rejection to where we're not able to even see beyond that current moment. The current moment in rejection is simply, if at its in its simplest form, is simply just no. Hey, I would like to work for you. No. Hey, do you want to go out and be my girlfriend? No. Like that, the simplest form of rejection is no. But that's not the end of the world. And oftentimes, because we're caught up emotionally with rejection, and because of the fact that as men, we can't say, dang, that kind of hurt me a little bit, that I thought I had a chance. And she just kind of was like, no, you don't have a chance. We are conditioned to not say that that hurts us or that affects us. So then what do? We get angry. Well, I don't want to talk to you anyway. That's why you're ugly. Well, if I was so ugly, why were you coming over here to say anything to me in the first place? Right. So um, those are the areas that I start thinking about when it comes to this topic. But I think even more so, and I think you bring this out, a profound moment in Hollywood on that scene with Will Smith and Uncle Phil, right? Or yeah, Will and Uncle Phil, where he's like, "Why doesn't he want me, man?" And he breaks down crying. And there's actually, I believe, a documentary where he talks about how he was really distraught in that moment about real life, not TV life, but that level of rejection to where I believe in life, we think that there are people in our lives like mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, family members that should be accepting of us in our role as their family, right? Like, I'm your brother, you are my sister. We should probably be at least on the bare minimum on that page. And to have those moments of rejection where it's like, yo, I want to disown you. I don't want to really be related to you. That hurts and it has an impact. And I do want to talk about tonight when we have those moments of rejection, which are a little more difficult, right? When they're people people you love and you value their opinion, when you have moments of rejection there, it hits different. And I do want to talk about how we as men can navigate that tonight. So, but that's where I'm at when it comes to this topic, really about those different areas.
You just made me think of my favorite saying, which is stop putting unrealistic expectations on unreliable people. Nobody's exempt from that rule. Not mother, not father, not brother, not wife. And if your expectations aren't aligned, that's when rejection really gets you. Is because you expect these people to be inside your mind and like, look, you know I'm the best fit. You know I'm the right guy for you. You know I'm a stand-up guy that's but it's funny how that works. Like the old cliche, like you didn't want me and you didn't want me back then, but now you got kids and now you want me. It's because it's a good thing she didn't want you back then because her mind was calibrated for pieces of shit and you didn't meet the piece of shit criteria. So there's good to be mined from that. But when you put these expectations and you expect people to see you for the way that only really a handful of people know you are, that's how you get your heart broke about job interviews and stuff like that. Like, man, why don't they see me? They don't see my value. It's sometimes your value is unquantifiable,
Mm-hmm.
and people have to live in your value. Like, damn, I didn't realize how important you were until you went on vacation. Sometimes it's that simple. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you went on vacation and the shit went to hell, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Or so, like, oh man, or it goes both ways. Like, man, like when I go on vacation, my boss is like, man, your team runs really smooth when you're not here. Well, yeah, because I teach them to be adults and free thinking people and handle shit on their own.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it goes, there's a lot of facets that come to that, but that's what it made me think of is nobody's exempt from that rule, man. You got to put the right level of expectations on the reliable folks and you'll be
Right.
okay.
And you'll make it. So with that, I do want to move to my next question because there are a lot of emotions that arise when we're rejected. I'm telling you, this week I've already had, and I've only been back in Utah for, like I said, 2 days. This week I've already had conversations with men where it's like there is a level of rejection taking place in their life, and there's emotions connected to that. And what I'm finding is that a lot of us as men don't know how to navigate those emotions because we're just either out of practice or we never practice, right? Like you maybe practice once, then you stopped, or you never practiced at all, and now here we are dealing with the emotion. But for you, what emotions when you've experienced rejection in your life, what emotions have arose when you've experienced rejection?
Yeah, there's a spectrum for this shit, man. Because there's where I was, and then where I'm at, and then where I want to be. Uh, it's funny because Key, friend of the show, uh, Key Bryant, he said one time, he said, anger is never on its own. Anger is always a symptom of what the real root of the problem is. Nobody's angry just for being angry's sake. They're angry because they're hurt, they feel insecure or whatever. So when I look back on that, sometimes what it was a lot of that stuff, the emotion, but like you feel hurt, you feel betrayed. You know what I mean? You feel like you start questioning yourself. That's the toughest one. That's I think where as men, I think that's where we struggle the most is because when we have to look inside and wonder, are we short in some of these areas? Like, I know we're going to talk about like I don't know if this is the spot to talk about like family members and disowning them and stuff like that. But back in the day, I would be like, you know, if you don't see it the way that I see it and you want to take the position you want to take, then go fuck yourself. I'm good. Like, I'll live my life. And I am unnaturally comfortable with solitude. I don't really need a lot. And I know I'm an outlier with that. I know that's not how most people are. That's a good strength, but every strength could turn into a weakness if you rely on it too much. And that is where it surfaced with me, where someone wanted to burn a bridge, I'd help them. I'd lay the gasoline for them. Go ahead and light this match, burn this whole thing down. Where I'm getting to now is being more, how can I get better from this? You want to part ways, you think our relationship is damaged? Let me take some inventory on that. And sometimes you come across that there is some things you got to work on. And they're right. And they're doing what any good family member, friend, or whatever person in your life does, which is they're holding you accountable. And they're shining a light in the mirror to you, like, get your shit together. You know? Sometimes it's not a you problem, though. And if a relationship is a two-way street, if that one way is saying something, you kind of have to accept it. And then you just got to rest in your heart, like, hey, I guess it wasn't meant to stay connected because we're just on different paths. They view things one way, I view it another. And there doesn't have to be a personal affront from that all the time. Like, as men in general, specifically speaking for me, I used to take that very personal. If you rejected me for something, like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, I'm better than X than you. Like, how do you not see what I see? You know? And over time, that's gotten better. Now it's more, hey, maybe I am a little off. How do I get better from that? Now, is that perfectly where I wanted to be right now? Nah, there's still some times where I get, like, I tried out for a role that's higher than mine. And truth be told, I'm probably like 3 years. I got feedback on my interview, and it was good feedback, and they were positive about it. And in my head, I'm thinking, they don't have enough to quantify what I actually do yet. They see it. They probably couldn't get past seeing my tenure and not like, okay, he can't possibly be ready for this role yet, right? You know what I mean? And they had some examples, and they wanted to see some things that they want to see longer periods of time that I haven't worked yet, like long-term strategy and development. Well, in my current role, I've been there for 2 years. I haven't had really a chance to have a 5-year plan with something yet. You know what I mean? So instead of getting bummed out and being, oh man, screw y'all don't know what you're talking about, I was like, okay, now I know where to go. I know what to put in place, and I know what breadcrumbs to lead and what examples to have for next time I have this interview. So that's like the best way I could put it. Relationship department, it's really funny with relationships though, because when you really genuinely stop giving a damn, you don't have a problem with women. You really don't. Like, the most success I've ever had with women, I hit a point in time around 17, 18, 19 years old, right around in there, where I was just like, listen, this is the type of guy I am. If that's not what you're looking for, then I guess there's really nothing else to talk about. And then that confidence to kind of put it out there, it was like, wait a minute, okay, this is exactly who I want to talk to. But when you stop caring about living up to somebody else's expectations of yourself and only live up to you, good things tend to happen. But you get those insecurities when you're trying to match up to something that isn't you, and it comes off as being fake. And you see a lot of that online today. These internet, like, come on, dude, I know you live in a bad neighborhood and your car got repossessed. Stop posting next to this car. Like,
Right.
Stop. Why are you posting with like a money phone and you're broke as hell? I mean, like, stop it. So,
Well, I think you bring up some good.
That's the emotion that rises, a big explosion.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points there, though. In this act, in going to the fact of your quote of, we got to stop putting unrealistic expectations on unreasonable expectations on unreliable people, right? Sometimes we are that unreliable person, right? The expectation is maybe the expectation is we're always going to say yes, we're always going to cave, we're going to be like a doormat for people to just step on and wipe their feet on, and that's an unrealistic expectation on an unreliable person who is not willing to be that all the time. And I'm really not willing to be that at any time for myself personally. But if I was a person who may sometimes give concessions on one end and not on the other end, that means at some point somebody's going to get, no, I'm not going to allow you to do that today. For me, the emotions when I start thinking about um, what arises in me when I think about the times that I've been rejected. The first, it's so funny. The first rejection that I can remember from a girl was when I was in either seventh or eighth grade. I can't even remember which. I think I was in seventh grade. I remember asking this girl out, and I mean, I did the nines. Like, I got roses. Was like, yo, I'm gonna ask her in front of everybody. Asked her, and she was like, yeah, no. First time a girl has ever said no. Like, I've only had two girls in my life say, no, I'm not interested in talking to you or dating you. Um, and I was like, kind of taken back, like, like, kind of like you get like, do you know who I am?
Right.
Like, apparently you didn't understand the question that I was asking you, because if you did and you knew who I was, you'd be okay with saying yes. But I remember in thinking about this rejection topic about the emotions and the arrogance, right, of that thought process of, don't you know who I am, right?
You don't know
Um,
what you're missing.
right. But the thing is it's like, when I now from my 40s look back at who I was at that age, it was like, nah, you were saving yourself from a tornado. Like, you basically got into the bunker on time and the tornado did not sweep you away. Perfect for
Right.
you.
You were one yes away from being the tape at the end of the finish line. You about to get ran through.
Right. So it's like, I think about those emotions, and though the emotion I remember is like, you must not know who I am, that emotion is to mask, like, yo, this chick just told me no in front of everybody, right? And so then what emotion comes up is not just the emotion of embarrassment or the feelings of embarrassment, but
Right.
like, now that emotion or that feeling of embarrassment and mixed with rejection makes me say, okay, now who do I have to try to talk to re-puff up my ego to let them know I still got it, right? And so when I start thinking about the emotions that have typically arisen when it comes to rejection, ego is the first emotion I think of that comes up. That, yeah, I didn't want to talk to you anyway, even though I was never that way. But in other areas in my life, I can see me being that way. Um, but then the second one that comes up to that is really like a hurt slash embarrassment. Like, dang, I put
Devalued.
I put myself out there and I got rejected. And as I started thinking about those emotions, I really started thinking about, like, playing basketball, right? You get rejected. That's what we used to call it when we were kids. You
Right.
got rejected. Reject the mess out of you. Here you are thinking you're about to make a layup, and somebody comes from out of nowhere and throws the ball in the other direction. And when it comes to rejection with other things in life, with people, with relationships, hell, even we can go with your credit, right?
Right.
It comes to rejection with let's go with your credit. You're going for what you think is going to be a win or a score or a point, and somebody comes up and says, yeah, we don't want to give you any credit, reject you. And there's a lot you can do with that. A lot of people, in my experience, a lot of people take that and go and prove why they don't have credit worthiness. They go out and try to buy their emotions back to stability. Like, well,
I
now
got money. Let me show you how much money I got.
you're missing out on all this 80% debt to income ratio, right? And so a lot of people will try to buy their way out of that. And that never works, because what you do is you put yourself in the very situation that the creditor was worried about, and now your credit goes south.
Have you proved their point?
You just showed them why it was a good idea for them not to give you credit.
Right.
And oftentimes we as men will do that, where it's like, well, that chick that I really thought I loved and would care about and could, like, see myself having a future with, she wasn't with it. So I'm gonna go out and mess around with all these other females. And again, that's just the same
I'm gonna
thing.
show her.
You're validating the reason why either she felt you weren't ready at that time, or she felt like you just weren't the one for her because you might be lacking the maturity that's necessary to get past that rejection and show her what she's missing from a sense of a healthy manner. Not just, oh, well, I'm going to show her all the females really want me and she could have had me. And now you're going to see me with 17 other females and think, man, I missed my chance to be number 18. Hell out of here. Ain't nobody missing nothing. But that emotion that arises typically for me when I've been rejected has been that pride. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna show you. And to an extent, that has worked for me well in the professional industry because I've never left an interview that I didn't get the job and say, well, now I'm gonna go and just do the same thing like you. You said, hey, I got some information that I can use to improve my stance on the next attempt that I make. I think that's a good, healthy approach to that in that regard. But what I didn't do is say I'm gonna go and get 6 more jobs and show them all why they should have had me as right.
I went for a promotion. I didn't get it. I quit. I'm gonna go work somewhere else and start from the bottom and show you to maybe one day get to the same position. Yeah.
Right. I'll show you, Batman, said Robin. So so I've learned to put that emotion of pride to the side. And it doesn't mean that you can't have pride, but that should not be my primary emotion when I get rejected. Now, if I go for a promotion for a job and I don't get it, I'm competitive. There's a difference between being prideful and competitive. I'm competitive, and I'm going to say, okay, how do I set myself up for a win the next time? But at the end of the day, I'm very aware of when, and I tell everybody who interviews me this, I'm very aware that you're interviewing me for the role that you have, but I'm also interviewing you to see if it's a company or a role that I would like to take, because at the end of the day, it's not in question for me the type of employee you're going to get. That's not in question for me. That's in question for you. And because of my confidence in the type of employee that you're going to get, if you reject me, I don't take that as a loss for me. I'm like, wow, you guys might be missing out on a really great employee, and you'll have to learn that maybe in hindsight, if ever. That's what I'll have to do. Really quick before you jump back in, Brother Tim. Casual says, I think I suffered from more rejection from within. Oh, I like that. We'll talk about that later. I rejected my own attempt before shooting my shot. Woo! Self-sabotage.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we're gonna dive into that. I know it. But where I found a really turning point, and which I feel like I'm a really good partner and husband to my wife. The thing that helped me the most with that is I had a period of like 2 years when I got divorced from my first wife and when I got in contact with my new wife. So I was out there for like 2 years, and I was seeing this woman every now and again, and she told me, "Hey, I'm gonna have to have you lose my number. We can't do this no more. I don't want to do this no more." And I was like, "What?" Like, kind of like you said, "Do you know who I am?" Like, you've been calling me like half these times, telling me come by. Like, you're rejecting me? Like, but I went against it this time. One of the best decisions I've ever made. And I said, you know what? Tell me why. And don't spare my feelings. Just be real. And she laid into me, like, she didn't stop talking for like 10 minutes. I was selfish. I only cared about what I was getting out of things. Everything had to be on my time. I don't invest in anything about her, that I'm just using her, which all this shit was true. It was all true. And she asked me when she was done, I'll just ask you a question. What do I do for a living? We've been seeing each other off again, on again, off again for about 3 months. What do I do for a living? And why do I do it for a living? And I was like, you're in the medical field or something. I'm guessing you're a nurse because I see the scrub. She said, yeah, that's a good guess. And yes, I am a nurse. But you don't know what drove me to that. You don't know what's behind my aspirations and what that gives me fulfillment. When she went off on a whole tangent, I was like, damn, maybe I'm not as attentive. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe I'm only thinking about me. And mind you, I was coming out of a divorce where I was like, and it was very selfish. Like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to have my fun. It is about me. But for how long do you get to play that card? and how many lives you get to play with because of your own heartbreak. And you got to face those things. And when she told me that, it made me do a lot of inside looking. And she held to it. Like, we never talked again. I never reached out to her at any point again. I told her thank you when she was down. I was like, thank you for letting me know that. I need that. And it made me more attentive. When I ran into my wife and we started talking, I always make it a point to find out what she got going on. And it's very, I'm a selfless partner in a relationship, because I know that's especially for women, that's how they know, that's how you really show them you're paying attention to them and that you care about them. So she taught me a lot, but I was willing to say, hey, where am I short? Even like the same way, like I got like feedback from a job interview for some chick that rejected me. And it was the rejection on face value hurt even more because, man, we had been intimate more than a few times, right? And it's like, okay, I'm thinking this is great. This is why I'm getting callbacks. Now you're willing to write it off. Maybe there's something I'm not doing right. You know, as a man, we take it to the dumbest thing. Maybe physically, am I missing something here physically? And she's like, no, you're missing something emotionally. You have no emotion. You have you're there's just like darkness in you. I was like, damn. But to your point, yeah, if you learn how to harness that stuff, and maybe from that point on is really when I started doing that. I don't really remember, but I remember thinking when she told me, like, damn, that wasn't as bad as I thought I was going to hear. I was going to hear, you're too short for me. You're not good in the sack. You know, all this stuff we don't want to hear as men. Like, tell me I'm emotionally damaged. Tell me that I'm all these. Tell me I'm a psycho, but don't tell me I'm not good in the sack. Don't tell me I'm too short. Don't tell me I'm too ugly. Like, we're physical divas ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to admit that, but we don't like being told we're not good looking. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking I'm gonna hear all this crap. Like, man, I'm embarrassed to bring around my friends. You ugly. But it wasn't that. It was all this other stuff. I was like, damn, that stuff I could fix. If you tell me I'm ugly, I can't really do nothing. But I can get a facelift, but look how those things look. People be looking weird. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to look like a boy Bratz doll in my 30s. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's funny. Like, it never really seems as bad as it is. And if it is bad, the person that is probably the wrong person anyway. But I'll turn it back to you.
No,
you just got me on a tangent.
I love that though. No, it's funny because again, it goes back to that pride thing. Look, you can tell me I'm unemotionally unavailable. I can't communicate well. You can have all these things, but don't tell me I stroke left when I'm supposed to stroke right. Like, don't tell me that. Like, I'm not interested in hearing that, right? But that's again the pride thing of rejection, because it's like, and I feel like for us as men, we're very performance based, right? Like, how are we performing? And I don't just mean like sexually performing. I mean like our performance. Like, I wouldn't want one of them to you broke. You don't seem to be killing me, right? I'd be like, whoa, like, damn, I'm dead in the water. You saying like that? That speaks to my performance as a man, and that for us is like worse than like, I'm too short. Okay, well, you're gonna get what I give you because I'm not gonna grow any taller. I'm not gonna cut my bones in half and put stents in my legs to get me taller. So you get what you get there. But things that we can impact or things that we can fix, I feel like sometimes those rejections hit us a little harder. I do want to jump into casuals conversation about self-rejection, because I think a lot of us play these scenarios, and I can't remember which men's circle this was in, where I was talking about the different branches of thoughts and how we exhaust ourselves on all these different thoughts internally before we actually do anything externally. And that self-rejection where we tell ourselves no when really the girl on the other side of the room is waiting for you to come and ask for her name or ask her to dance, right? We tell ourselves no on jobs. Well, I don't have the experience. The job that I work right now, I literally had about, I don't know, I'm going to say 70%, maybe 80% of the things that were required in the job rec. And I still was able to secure the job because I'm articulate enough to be able to convey my experiences that show that I have a propensity to be able to learn new information and apply new information. learn and apply, learn and apply. And I can give you, in an interview, I can give you example after example after example where I didn't know something and then I became an expert in the something that I didn't know, right? But when you have this self-rejection dialogue that goes on, and you don't have that confidence conversation going on, because there's a rejection conversation you can have and there's a confidence conversation you can have. When you're not having enough confidence conversations and you're having the majority of rejection conversations, you say, oh, I'm not even going to apply because I'm missing their main characteristics they're looking for in their job, right?
Right. I think I was going to say, I think when I really deep dive into this, to Casual's question, I think that's to your root as in your male DNA to be a protector. And you're protecting yourself from yourself preemptively. You're somewhere in your mind, you're thinking, like, it's never she's not going to give me a chance. It's she's not going to give me a chance because of this, that, and the other. And these are things you know about yourself internally that you need to work on. Or you feel that you need, or something you don't feel confident enough about it. So you're protecting yourself from the rejection. Same thing with, like you said about the job interview, like, man, the experience, I don't have the experience. What you're doing is you're protecting yourself to where you're making it make logical sense why you're not going to get it. So it doesn't hurt you as much as it would before. So I will challenge you, Casual, in the future, go see if you're right. If you feel she's going to reject you, go earn your no. Go see if she's going to actually reject you. And if you're feeling really bold, if she says no, say, if you don't mind me asking, well, why the no? Level with me. Shoot me straight. And she might tell you some crap you didn't even think about. No, because I'm 2 months pregnant, just not showing. No, because I got a man. Whatever. And you might see the rejection ain't got shit to do with you. It's about where she's at. But I would challenge you to see if you're right. Don't assume. But yeah, that's what I think. I think deep down it's our protective DNA, and we want to protect, and we even want to protect ourselves from anything that could hurt us mentally, physically, or spiritually, or emotionally. And we put these little preemptive things in place because that's what we do as men. A lot of things that you do are because something that's happened to you before. If your house got broken into, you're going to lock the doors every night before you go to bed. You're going to get a gun and put it by the side of your bed. Woman rejects you before, you're going to be like, she ain't going to want me. The next one ain't going to want me because X, Y, and Z. And I don't want to feel that feeling of embarrassment that I felt before, which is, if you want to live that way, what do you think? You think the woman in your dreams is just going to come and be like, hey, me and you together now?
Right.
Not likely. Not likely.
It's not going to happen that way for dang sure. It's interesting because we're going to get into this topic a little bit later too about healthy rejection. But when I think about what self-rejection looks like for myself, it really is, I just forgot this word, but it runs parallel with doubt, right? Like, I am doubting something over here that is causing me to self-reject myself over here. We could take when I wrote the book, right? Wrote my book, Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. And there was a lot of doubt when I began to write that. I knew the book title years in advance, but there was a lot of doubt. And the doubt was, have you had enough life experiences to be able to really talk to somebody about how to engage with their passion? Have you gotten it right enough? Not all the time, but have you gotten it right enough in your own life where you can actually disseminate that information and those experiences to others to help them understand that they too can get it right? All these things are going on. And in that, each time I would sit down and think, okay, maybe it's time to write the book, I'd self-reject that. No, it's not time to write the book. You don't have enough experience yet. You don't have enough. You have some distance that you need to create between some bad decisions you've made in the past. Like, all these different things would come up. Finally, I just said, and be honest, I said, fuck it. I'm going to write this book. I went from the beginning of a year to starting writing a book, actually kind of like the second quarter of the year to writing the book, to the beginning of the third quarter. was their fourth quarter. Sorry, beginning of the fourth quarter, the book was ready to go. And it was like, okay, cool. Now we're in editing. Now we're in publishing. And I remember one of the things that the editor said that was very fascinating to me because I'm okay with grammar and punctuation and stuff. But she says to me while she's editing the book, she says, I can tell that you've placed a lot of eyes on this content because there's not a lot in here for me to edit. One of my self rejectings was, well, you haven't really done like the college MLM citations and all that English literature stuff that they have you do in college. So you're not going to be the world's best writer. But what I was discounting in this doubt and in accepting this self rejection was I've been writing for years, years. I mean, I've been writing in journals since I was a teenager. And then I moved from that to writing vlogs, and to move from that to writing blogs, to writing first row content. Like I've been writing for quite some time. And in that, I was perfecting my craft. But because of the doubt, I was self-rejecting the fact that I'd be able to write a book. Because of the doubt, I was sitting there in this space of feeling like, oh, well, my writing is not going to be that good. Like only my friends are going to think that this writing is good. But people who don't know me, going back to that rejection complex, they don't know enough about me. They're going to be like, what is this bullcrap this dude wrote about fire your job, hire your passion? He's not talking about it. And once the content was out and once the book was published, that was far from the truth. But it took me a long time to ramp up the current
Right. You discounted the fact, like it's okay to be self-conscious about some things if it gets the right result, as you're going to put more focus on it. Like you did. You were like, you knew what your shortcomings were as a writer, even though those may be misconceived shortcomings, but they weren't. You were like, I'm no Charles Dickens. You're thinking about this high elite level of writing, when what that made you do is that made you look at everything more measured, and more focus was put on it. Where if you would have had those things, maybe you would have been a little loose, and the editor would have had to go fix some things because you would have been maybe falsely confident in your ability. So to me, there is some good things that come with that.
No, there are some good things that do come with it, because it does hone and sharpen your saw, right, or sharpen your sword or your knife. It does that, but I think there has to be a healthy balance of that, because if there's too much of the doubt and too much of what I'm going to call the undermining of the confidence, then you simply never start. You never start to write the book. You never even take the first step to go across the room to ask the girl would she like to dance. You never do those things because you've undermined yourself, and in a sense devalued yourself to such a degree that it's like it'd be like walking past a dirty penny on the ground. You're like, I'm not even going to pick that up because it's so dirty. It's not worth the 1 cent that it's worth. The germs that it's carrying are not worth the 1 cent. And that's where I think as men, when we get into these self rejecting cycles, not even cycles, we get into these self rejecting loops, to where it's like we might be going fine on a path. And then typically, I can only speak for myself in my experience, we are rejected by a woman that we either love, like, or care about. And that initiates this beginning of the loop. And we just kind of go in this loop and stay in this loop until we finally say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get my confidence back. And then we start to exit that loop. Sometimes we still make a backslide back into the loop. But, and I think maybe for you and maybe and definitely for myself, but maybe for you, Tim, when you're talking about kind of getting out there, I'm coming off of a divorce. That's the entrance into that loop. Coming off this divorce, and now it's all about me. And I'm going to be in this loop, all about me in this loop, all about me in this loop, until this person is real enough with me to tell me, hey, look, you're not, you don't even care about me as a potential partner to you. Why would I want to be with you? And that causes you to reflect. And once we take a moment to reflect, that's when we start to see things for what they actually are versus the story that we tell ourselves that they are. And so I think that that's a really important aspect about self rejection is being able to acknowledge that you're in a loop or in a cycle that feels unending, and be able to stop in that cycle, reflect back, and say, okay, how did I get here? Because I got to figure out how to get out of here. This isn't what.
Right. And it's funny because I think we build rejection up too, falsely. Like we think it's this end of the road type moment. And it's like there's been times where I've taken a woman on a date, and everybody's gotten this where you think things are going okay, but like you may be giving you may be being too cool to where you're not giving the vibe that you want to give, and she gives you a kiss on the cheek, and then I says, "Man, you're such a good friend." Everybody's gotten that one, I think. And it's like, nah, man, I got enough friends. I ain't ask you out as I don't ask my friends out. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, like I think we build that up too much. Like there was times I can think of a lot of times I got rejected where, you know, but I don't even like I remember like, man, that was kind of funny. But I will challenge anybody thinking if you're looking at it as gambling or analytics or risk assessment, the good outcome far outweighs the bad outcome. That girl on the end of the room, what if she's been, like you said, what if she's been waiting for you the whole night? You go and talk to her, you connect with somebody, you're like two souls connecting in the night. You know, that's like the extreme of the outcome. The worst case scenario is the lady says, yeah, no, you're not my type. No thanks. And then you're like, damn, all right. But then you move on with your life. And in a week, you kind of forget that it happened. Uh, but the good just so far outweighs the bad. I'm on 2%. If I get cut off, that's why. But go ahead, bro.
Gotcha. We might have a short men's circle tonight if you get cut off at 2%. However, no, I 100% agree with you in that regard. Where I was thinking about where does our self rejection start? And typically, it reminds me of like being a kid when you get ready to, like, let's say I would ask my parents, hey, can I stay the night at Tim's house? Right? There's this perceived my parents are going to say no. And so you try to do all these things like clean your room and clean the kitchen and get all your homework done, right? Try to do all these things so that you can make it to the side of a yes, or at least a likely yes or a potential yes, versus just feeling like they're going to just say no. Like your room's a mess, they're going to say no. And so you do all these things only to find that the answer sometimes is still no, right? Or you do this, you muster up the courage to ask your mom, hey, mom, can I go and stay at Tim's house? And then she says, go and ask your dad. And you're like, that's not who I wanted to ask because he's probably right.
Right. And then it's like you start doing it like, they gonna tell me no. You ask, they'll say yes to you.
Exactly. But then you also still have that other side of that where it's like sometimes your parents be like, yeah, you can. And then it's like there's another part of that equation where it's like, okay, now Tim has to ask his parents, can Billy stay the night? Right. And I think it's just like, I'm going to keep referring to this, just like going to that other side of the room to ask that girl, would you like to dance? That's like the first one. And she might say, yeah. But then if you want to continue that, you might have to ask her for her number. And she might say no. Right. So it's like there's sometimes these layered approaches to rejection where it's like you might get a yes on one end and then get a no on the other. And I think sometimes that's what we play in the world of self-rejection is we play in the, okay, well, if I get them to say yes to this, then the next thing that I got to get them to say yes to is this. Then the next thing I got to get them to say yes to is this. And they're probably going to say no to that. And so then you negate the other two because it's like, oh, well, I could have probably got her to say yes to two, but I don't think I can get her to say yes to the third thing. I've been in some pretty interesting experiences in my life where people have said yes to all three things that I would have never thought they would have said yes to the first thing. So it's casual to not answer your question because you didn't ask a specific question, but when it comes to this self-rejection from within, I think the best thing you can do is put yourself out there, and I love, Tim, what you said about earn your no. Earn your no instead of giving yourself your no. If you give yourself your no or you reject yourself, you didn't earn it. There's no fight.
Right. Basically, casual. You don't know. You don't have enough data, because like in your analogy, Billy, your parents might say no, it ain't got shit to do with your room.
Right.
It could be. It could be like, we know the neighbors next to Tim recently had a beef with somebody. We don't want you to be. They might do a drive-by or something, and you right next door. It ain't got nothing
Right.
to do with Tim, his family, your room, your grades, nothing. Thank you for cleaning up, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's that's what I mean. You don't have enough data. You're going off of what you're feeling about yourself and what you assume, and that's not always the best.
No, not at all. So good bring in on that. Really quick, are you under a power source now, or
No, somebody, my charger, my car, but somebody's blocking me in.
yeah? Oh,
On my
good times. So
Nobody's there. No more.
you're gonna end. So before you cut out, give me your final thought. I'll wrap up with a little bit less. We'll call this for an hour today.
Oh,
I got my final thoughts are this.
why won't they let us go?
Son, I'm talking. Feedback. I tell my people, my employees all the time, feedback is a gift. I will extend that and say rejection is a gift if you use it right. If you don't find out why you're really being rejected, sometimes you need to hear the things you don't want to hear. Sometimes if you're worried you're gonna get rejected because you feel like you're a little bit out of shape, sometimes you need to hear that. Maybe you'll get in shape. Or
Or your battery dies. I love doing live shows. I cannot convey to you guys enough how much I love doing live shows. Anyway, that's my brother Tim. I love him. I'm glad he was able to at least tune in for a little bit. There was one other question that I wanted to talk tonight about when it comes to rejection. It's, are there healthy ways to reject people? Hold on, I got people in the comments now. Casual said no. Hey, that's how it is sometimes when you're rolling live. But there was one more question that I wanted to address with the circle tonight, and this is really, are there healthy ways to reject people? And I think, Casual, this goes into what you were talking about from the perspective of self-rejection. It is really hard to find healthy ways to reject other people, whether that's rejecting women, rejecting jobs, ghosting people, all that stuff. It's hard to find healthy ways to reject people if you have a negative rejection process within yourself. If the way I reject myself is negative, is abusive, is I want to say intrusive to who I am as an individual, and it diminishes, or I forget this word, I don't know why I can't remember it, but if it diminishes my confidence, the way that I reject myself internally, I'm probably going to mirror that energy when it comes to rejecting other people. So there are healthy ways to reject people. Sometimes it's simply no. There's been plenty of times in my life where people have said, "Hey, Billy, can you do this?" And the answer has been, "No, I cannot." Plenty of times that I've done that. But there's been other times where people will ask me to do things, and I will explain why I'm not willing to do those things. And so going back to what Tim was saying about the parents who may not want you to stay at your friend's house because there's something going on around your friend's house. It has nothing to do with you and your room being clean, has nothing to do with your friend and their household, but it has to do with the area that you would be in might potentially be unsafe. There's healthy ways to reject people in that regards as well, by simply sharing that information. Because sometimes, not all the time, sometimes the rejection that we feel internally has more to do with us personally and internally than it does for the other person. The other person, as Tim said in the very beginning, the other person, it's not personal. It's not like, hey, I don't like you because you're too tall or because you're too short or because you didn't do something right. I'm not in a space right now to receive or to give what you're requesting, right? I'm not in a space to receive your affection and attention or your job offer, or I'm not in a space to give you the affection and attention that you want or the employee that you desire right now. And so it becomes more about them than it is about you. Not always the case, but sometimes it is the case. And I love the fact that Tim was willing to ask, hey, I can respect where you're coming from with this rejection. Would you mind giving me some feedback? I think that that's a powerful way to create much more healthy rejection with others. When you're being rejected or when you are the one rejecting, is be willing to give that feedback. Because here's the thing, if people are being rejected for something that they have the aptitude or the ability to improve, then you giving the feedback allows them to make the choice on whether or not they want to improve those things. If you don't give them that feedback, then they are simply making up a story in their mind as to why you chose not to accept or extend whatever they requested, accept what they are giving or extend what they requested. So there are healthy ways to reject people. I think the most healthy way is to simply have that open communication as to why you're making that rejection, if it's necessary. Sometimes no, and we don't have to talk about that. We don't have to be ugly about a no, like hell no. Nah. We don't have to be ugly about the no. We can simply say, no, thank you. I don't prefer to do that. Or no, thank you. Would you like to dance? No, thank you. I'm not in the mood to dance right now. Would you like me to come back later? No, thank you. Like, we don't have to know because I've seen you dance 5 steps later, and I don't think you know how to dance. We don't have to do all that. It could simply just be a no. And if people can't accept your no, and you know that your no wasn't a negative no, a tone no that was like something that should have been received in an offensive way, let that be their issue, not yours. That's the other part of healthy rejection, is when you say no and somebody is offended by it, don't let that be the don't let that become, I'm sorry, the definition of what your intent was behind the no. Because when you say no, you have a reason for why you said no. And sometimes you can share that reason, and other times you don't have to. So that was the other thing that I did want to talk about with my brother Tim before his phone died in the middle of his final thought. But there are healthy ways to reject people. Sometimes you'll share that feedback as to why you're making that rejection, and that's healthy for not only them, but healthy for you to understand why you're making the decisions to reject people or reject certain things. I don't want to say necessarily always people. You might just reject a request. So you'll understand why you're rejecting certain requests and why you're accepting other requests. But then in other situations and scenarios, it's just simply like, hey, no. And I know enough about me to know why I don't want to do that. If somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Billy, you want to come with me to rob a bank? No, I'm good. I'm good. I know enough about me to know that I don't want to rob a bank. And if that's what you want to do with your time, you enjoy yourself, but I won't be there with you because I ain't going to serve no time with you for robbing a bank. So that's what I have. But as far as the takeaways from tonight, we didn't get as far as I would like to get in tonight's conversation, but maybe we'll do a part 2 of this somewhere down the road when I can get some other brothers here that also have some experiences that I would love to have them share this evening. But I did get 2 key takeaways. The very first takeaway from tonight was don't take rejection personally. It's not so much about you. It's not always about you. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's not. And what happens is we find ourselves telling ourselves a story, something that makes it about us. We typically don't tell ourselves a story that doesn't make it about us. We typically tell ourselves a story that makes it about us. And when we do that, we begin to take rejection very personally. And for men, that personal feeling of rejection then impacts our ego, which typically will trigger hurt, which typically will trigger anger and retaliation. So that's the key takeaway number 1. And then takeaway number 2, and casual, this came from Tim to you. Earn the no of rejection. We have to stop as men rejecting ourselves, rejecting are like, I've had conversations with a couple of men this week again, and they were emotional. And I just gave them that space to be emotional in the space that they were in and say, hey, this is how you're feeling. It's okay. Take 5 breaths. I'm here. I can wait. We're good. If you got to cry, cry. Do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, earn that no. Don't feel like you have to be something that you're not. Don't feel like you have to avoid something that you don't want because it might come with a no, then it might come with rejection. Earn the no. I tell people all the time, look, you're going to have to tell me no before I tell myself no. That's like the number one rule in sales. Hey, let the customer tell you no. Don't say no for the customer. And that's how I kind of live my life when it comes to rejection. Trust me, I go through a very stringent, scrutinous process of dealing with the imposter syndrome and yeses and nos within myself. So when the time comes to jump and I'm going to go ahead and talk to somebody about something where they may tell me yes or no, yeah, you're going to have to tell me no. Hey, I'm trying to get this raise. You're going to have to tell me no. Hey, I understand we're not giving raises right now, but here's what I've done, and here's the analysis that I've done on how much I pay versus how much I bring to the table. I think I deserve a raise. I'm going to put the ball in your court to tell me no on that. And here's the other thing. This is a bonus tool. We didn't get to this tonight in the conversation about rejection, but here's the thing about rejection. The bonus tool on rejection is just because somebody tells you no over here doesn't mean that it's not a yes somewhere else. My whole book, Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion, started because I was told no about who I thought I was, who I believed and still believe that I am, as an inspirational and motivational person. My whole book was based off of that concept. Somebody telling me I wasn't something that I believed that I was. And instead of trying to prove to them that I was something that I believed that I was, I simply moved to a place where that value was accepted and appreciated. I simply created the first row where that value is accepted and appreciated. And so just because you hear no, and that's a bonus takeaway that we didn't get to tonight, just because you're rejected on one spectrum doesn't mean that value that you have or that yes that you are seeking is not available on another spectrum. The only thing I will say is, again, be careful when you're doing that it's not this, because the girl said no, I'm going to talk to 15 other girls to prove to her that she missed out on a good thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about really experiencing your value and placing it in the places where that value can be reciprocated and received. So that's what I got for you guys tonight. I'm a short men's circle tonight. Next Tuesday, no, not next Tuesday. And 2 Tuesdays from now, we'll have another men's circle. And then after that, we'll be in the holiday season. So we'll probably only have 1 men's circle in November and 1 men's circle in December. And then we will touch back in January for the beginning of the year for men's circles again. Other than that, still working on some things. If you did not come to the Men's Circle Presents Legacy Conference, all I can tell you is you missed out. There's some things that I'm going to start marketing for that I gave some of the men gave the men who came to that conference. I got to figure out how I'm going to market it to where I can sell a particular product that the men got from coming to the conference. But we're going to start preparing for the next conference, and hopefully you will be able to make it to that conference. It was a great time had by many. Still getting feedback about that was exactly what they needed. So I'm telling you, there's something different about being online in the virtual environment versus being face-to-face, where you can see men who look like you, think like you, and are all in the building for growth. So that's what I got for you guys tonight. I thank you guys for tuning in. Until the next time, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. Always happy to engage with you in the live chat. Thanks for connecting with us tonight in the live chat casual. And if you're watching via the replay, happy to connect with you in the comment section until the next content rolls out. After that, we move on. So until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the first row.